All right, so here we are. We're going to try to wrap up those peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. We'll try to talk about chapter one. So by this time, you wrote your peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. I shared you some of the document elements that you used in those instructions. And then you've worked through this quiz. It's called a quiz because Canvas calls it a quiz. But this reading exercise about chapter one. Um, and so now let's talk about it. Let's talk about a few of those important points and those that you're going to have to draw upon throughout the course. Now, as we already talked about, I mentioned your use of document features that you've already done without me asking. You use bulleted lists, numbered lists, wingding lists, headings, titles, paragraphs, headings, tools needed lists, ingredients lists, highlighting, introductions. So you've used many features already, like as a group. I was kind of hoping I'd see pictures, but well, maybe next time, right? Might see some images, especially now that images are a part of excellent technical documents. And there I am, touching my face again. Sorry. Now, kind of the trick is that I asked you to write instructions for me. And I said, write instructions for how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And that was it. And maybe in a face-to-face classroom, some of you would ask me questions about what you see on the screen here. Oh man, I meant to move this over. My picture's cutting some of this off, isn't it? But online, no one had any questions. You just did your stuff and you handed it in. And our course syllabus talks about these questions I have there. Learning outcome state. We're going to look at documents. Say, what does this document need to do? Who does it need to do that for? And how is that person going to digest it, right? And then the book adds, where is this document going to be written? Where is it going to be read? And what process is going to be used to create it? Okay. So we can think about that. We can think about audience. Who is the audience for your peanut butter and jelly sandwiches? Who did you write for? And that's really important, especially since you're going to be technical communicators. I love how my notifications are coming in. We could think about it this way. Think about we're part of this group of scientists, and we just perfected time travel. And for our first field trip, we decided that we would go visit the Mongols and Attila the Hun. And as the first people on a field trip, we were going to prove that this time travel stuff works, right? And of course, we would take snacks. We go to visit the Huns, and we're like, oh, they've never had peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. We're going to show Attila the Hun how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And we show Attila the Hun, and we never decide to ask, like, do you have a peanut allergy? Are you allergic to tree nuts? Next thing you know, Attila's dead. All the Huns watched us kill Attila with this crazy food we brought with us. And you know what? Now we're dead. We're slaughtered by the Huns because we didn't ask our audience about their needs, right? So maybe that's kind of extreme, but maybe that's an example. We need to ask our audience, what do they know about the topic? What don't they know? How do they feel about it? And how are we going to give that information to them, right? And all of that's going to direct our communication. And so then it's like the purpose. So why are we showing someone how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich? Have they never made one before? Am I showing them how to make one for my daughter? Am I showing them how to make one for a patient? So what's this purpose, and how is that gonna reframe what you've already written? And then we have the genre. So I said write instructions. So instructions are the genre, right? Um, but you could even been that. It's like, okay, well, I guess you type some stuff into Canvas. So there's the medium part of the genre. But is it on paper? Is it on video? Could it be pictorial, right? So how could the genre affect this document as well? And we think about that for instructions, right? Like we get the instructions, we buy a new desk, and we have the instructions for how to put together a desk, right? And those instructions have to be written for the person who can't possibly read and knows very little about putting together desks, right? So it's a crazy feature of audience sometimes that we have to think of. All right, now say it, everyone's going to say it like employers are looking for people who can communicate effectively. So if you're a computer science major and if you've written the absolutely best computer program in the world, if you can't write an effective README file or effective instructions for the software, it never happened, right? If you're a chemical engineer and you've created a pollution-free way to turn water into gasoline, if you can't communicate that to other people, it never happened, right? We can think about, geez, like Charles Darwin, right? And Charles Darwin was actually in a little bit of a race with another natural scientist to publish the theory of evolution. So someone else was working through this at the same time as Darwin, but Darwin hit the presses first, right? You can also think about the theory of gravity. So who wrote that? Really? You think so? Or was that person a crappy writer who hired a ghost writer to write the theory for him? So crazy, right? All right, so great communicators are going to be awesome listeners and awesome speakers. Now, I have a great friend who works at an oil refinery. She's a scientist and she works with a lot of engineers. And she says she wishes all of the engineers could go to remedial communication, speaking and listening. She says that's what they need to work on the most. So think about that in your educational endeavors, right? And then how to research a problem, analyze the problem, and write a solution to the problem. Those are also important. If you can do these things well, you're going to get a job before the person who's a better engineer or computer scientist, for sure. Your resume is going to be better even. All right, so we have these features of technical communication, right? And so technical communication addresses specific readers. So for your peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, like who did you write those for, right? Who was the specific reader? We didn't have one. So now if we went back and wrote them, I was like, okay, I can put together a specific reader in a specific situation, in a specific setting, right? Because even the setting, are you writing instructions for someone who is in a kitchen? Or are they on a beach? Are they in a classroom? How is that going to affect your peanut butter and jelly instructions, right? You can think about this scientist friend of mine. So, chemical engineers, for example, will write process documents that she then collaborates on and reviews. And then, as an environmental scientist, she then translates and rewrites those documents for the Environmental Protection Agency. Also, it's a refinery in Los Angeles. It's around tons of people. People in the community want to know what's going on. So they also take this scientific stuff and translate it for the community members, right? So specific readers, we very rarely have general readers in mind. Maybe putting together that furniture, it can be anyone from like an illiterate person who never rubbed two sticks together to like a journey man. I'm trying not to say man to an experienced carpenter, right? Um, so that's pretty broad, but talking about scientist to engineer, it's pretty specific, right? And it helps solve problems. So why do I need to make this sandwich? Who am I making it for, right? What's the problem that's being solved? Or you can think about the refinery. I have this one chemical that I turned into another chemical, and these chemicals are regulated by the government. I have to prove that I didn't dump them into the Dominguez Channel, which goes into the ocean. So how do I show that? How do I show to other people that we've gone through the correct steps? And maybe that then bleeds into this third item, reflecting an organization's goals and culture. So maybe an oil refinery wants to make as much gas as possible, make as much money as possible, and following the Environmental Protection Agency and protecting the environment, it costs a lot of money. So are your documents going to reflect that you want to make money? Or are they going to reflect that you want to make gas and preserve the environment, right? You can even think about commercials we see on TV now. Didn't we see there's like Exxon Mobil commercials, and they call themselves an energy company, not a gas refining company, right? So how is that reflecting goals and culture, right? It's produced collaboratively. So, like I told you about this friend of mine, she takes things from engineers and writes them for other people, but they have a whole peer review process, and documents can't rise up in the approval structure unless they've been peer reviewed. I have a cousin who used to work for a movie studio, and she tracked like all of the expenses. She was a project coordinator, and she wrote entirely in wikis, and this was before Google Docs. I think she said she used PB Wiki. And so she would put, like, for a movie or a TV series, the project plan and do a wiki. And she had to manage, like, how many props were brought in, and how much did they cost, and how many sandwiches did they buy during filming, and how much did they cost. And so she'd have this wiki, and she'd just send an email to the prop house, email to the food vendors, and they'd fill in their little parts, right? So it worked as a team with other people, because that's the thing about communication. It takes a minimum of two biological entities, two nervous systems, okay? Now you can argue with me that robots can communicate, but there's computer programmers behind those robots, right? Okay, so, and then it uses design elements to increase readability. It's just how you all use subheadings and lists and titles, indents and paragraphs. It helps with readability, right? You can think about indenting a paragraph, way back when. There weren't paragraphs. Someone invented paragraphs. So you'd have like the scroll, huge list of text. So even before inventing paragraphs, they just invented the paragraph symbol. It'd be right there in the text, and like, oh, okay, the topic's breaking. And then someone was like, oh, hey, let's start a new line. But that all probably came after it became easier to make stuff like paper. Okay. Now, the book says great technical documents have words and images. I'm going to tell you that they have words and images and maybe video and maybe audio. And we can maybe consider a school for the blind. And if you're making documents for the school for the blind, you can make text documents, and maybe those text documents are embedded with an audio file that reads the text documents, right? Maybe you're addressing a diverse group of learners or talking about something super technical, how to screw a widget onto a Wachamatuzi. So maybe you have the textual instructions followed by a video, right? So now, just as our distance learning uses like video conferencing just because it's there, we can use audio and video and images in our text documents, not because we can, because it's going to improve clarity and readability, right? Okay. And so finally, we have these elements of excellence in technical communication, honesty. Like, when you have these chemicals at the oil refinery, are you honestly talking about where they've been and where they're going, right? Clarity. Are you delivering exactly what the readers need in a way that they can digest it, right? Are you doing it accurately? Are you being comprehensive? Are you covering all the information you need to cover? Like, did any of you say, oh, if you don't have bread, you better go buy some? Did any of you say that? I don't know. Are you being comprehensive? And accessibility. Are you writing in a language that the readers can understand? Are you taking into account people with vision problems? So if you have an image, um, does it have alternate text? So people have different vision capabilities. Are you being concise? Are you not talking too much? I talk too much a lot, but you know what? I'll also say my bullshit detectors go off when I just like hear a lot of blah 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 blah. People who talk forever, they're full of crap. If they know what they're saying, they're going to get to the point and let you know, right? Does it look good? Professional appearance? Like, I swear I made this dash black and now it's yellow again. Um, like I tell people, I wish I could break into every elementary school in the country and steal the Comic Sans font or the chalkboard font or the handwriting font and get them off of their computers because it doesn't look professional. Why do educators like the chalkboard font, right? It's horrible. It doesn't look professional and it can be difficult to read. Then is it correct and can people access it, right? So there are features of fonts like serif fonts or sans serif fonts that help us navigate text. So perhaps if you have a print document, your headings, they're going to be in bold and perhaps they'll be serif. They'll have the little feet on the letters. And then the body text will be sans serif, right? I just said that, said for print, really that'd be for online. Okay, so then we have all of these measures for excellence. So it's your job, well, our job then is you've been looking at instructables. So as you can guess, we're going to look at instructables and we're going to see how they've used the features of technical documents and how they've employed excellence in technical communication. So that's where we're going next week. Okay, so get ready for a vortex. Whoa.